Being a successful student requires many things. One of those is to understand the issues around academic integrity and plagiarism and how they affect our learning environment. This interview is meant to do just that. The Office of Student Judicial Affairs at the University of Alberta is one of the offices responsible for addressing violations of the Code of Student Behavior. They take a dual approach to matters of discipline. They address awareness of the code and they address violations of the code. Deborah Erkes is the director and a discipline officer. Here's what she had to say. Could you comment on the student discipline function of the Office of Student Judicial Affairs?
The Office of Student Judicial Affairs has 2 discipline officers, and our job is to deal with allegations of violations of the Code of Student Behavior. So when a student has been accused of a non-academic violation, we are the ones who deal with it and make a decision. If they've been accused of an academic violation, we only hear the most serious of those allegations, and that is those that are sent to us for us to consider suspension or expulsion or removing a degree that's already been in place. So we then have the requirement to look at these cases, make a decision as to whether or not this student should be suspended or expelled. And then that decision is appealable to the University Appeal Board. Our job partly is to make sure that students from across the university are treated consistently, so that we know that students who are facing the most serious consequences have a fair hearing.
Can students be suspended or expelled if they are caught plagiarizing?
Many students are afraid that they will be automatically suspended or expelled when they're caught with plagiarism, but that's not usually the case. So we have a wide range of sanctions available to us from under the code, and those sanctions might include something that would affect your grade on the paper, or something that might affect your grade in the course, or possibly a notation on your transcript that shows that you committed some sort of academic misconduct. But typically we don't go for the suspension or expulsion except in the most serious cases. So the short answer is yes, a student could be suspended or expelled for plagiarism, but it is most certainly not the first thing we go to.
What kinds of behaviors, choices, or mistakes can get students into trouble?
Students most commonly understand things like cheating on exams and plagiarizing papers, or that is copying from the internet, to be this kind of behavior. And that is true, that will get you into trouble, but there are a lot of other kinds of behaviors that will also get you into trouble. And all of them have in common that they give a student unfair academic advantage. Now, I'm not talking about just any academic advantage, because learning your material and studying hard and having good study habits will give you an advantage, but that's not unfair because every student has that possibility. What's unfair is when a student gets access to something that the other students don't get. So we're talking about things like handing in the same paper twice for credit because you only have to write 1 paper instead of 2, or faking a doctor's note to get extra study time on an exam, or stealing materials so that other students don't have access to them from the libraries, offering someone a bribe so you get a higher mark than your peers. All of those things, and many others, are ways of getting unfair academic advantage. So the best thing you can do is to read the code, go to the Code of Student Behavior online and find out what's in it. That's the most important thing.
We also spoke with Chris Hackett, a discipline officer and the academic integrity coordinator. Here's what Chris had to say about academic integrity. Could you comment on the academic integrity program in the Office of Student Judicial Affairs?
A big part of what we do is not just simply going out and punishing students for things where they may have violated the code. It's about educating people as well. So we spend a lot of time going into classes, we generate materials through the internet, we put things, we publish materials all about what academic integrity is, what are the consequences for violating the rules governing students, and how to avoid getting into trouble. We prefer to talk people out of getting into trouble rather than having to sanction them. So sometimes students can be confused when we use a term like academic integrity, but it's really fundamentally simple. It's about not taking credit for things that you didn't do. It's not about making up, it's making sure you don't make up data when you say that you're incorporating into your work. It's about being honest. And those are the same values that your parents probably taught you. It's the same values that are being reinforced all the time because they're fundamental to what we do as an academic community.
Do issues of academic integrity only apply to students?
Academic integrity is a fundamental value of the institution, so it applies to everyone, staff, students, and faculty. If people can't trust that we did the work that we said we were doing, then none of it's of any value whatsoever. They can't trust the research that we do because we may have made it all up. They can't trust the degrees that we give out because students may have cheated their way through to do them. So it's important that every member of the community not only uphold those values, but make sure that everyone else is as well.
Why should students care about academic integrity?
If another student cheats or plagiarizes in a course, it directly affects every other student in class. So if a student hands in a plagiarized paper, it deflates the grades of everyone else in the class because you're being marked against that. It also means that you're going to have to go out and compete with those people for jobs, for graduate school, and even more importantly, it affects our reputation. If we get a reputation that we're not taking care of those kinds of issues, it means that when you go to apply for graduate school, you apply for a job, you're not going to be able to, they're going to question whether or not you should actually, whether you actually have the credentials we say that you do. So it's something that you should be very concerned about and something you may want to be proactive about.